Sri Navadip Dham ki jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Yamuna Mai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, wir lesen von der Bhagavad-Gītā. Who can translate for English audience? Kannst du übersetzen, Prabhu? Nicht bis zum Schluss. Then we speak in English. We have 2 English-speaking people. We have 1 German-speaking people. Du verstehst beides, war das nicht so? Ja. So. Mataji, kannst du übersetzen ins Deutsche? Ja? Okay. Dann ist hier das deutsche Buch und ich brauche ein englisches Buch. Okay. Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam. Tasyang Jagarti Sangyami. Yasyang Jagrati Bhutani. Yasyang Jagrati Bhutani. Sanisha Pashyato Mune. Sanisha Pashyato Mune. Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam. Tasyang Jagarti Sangyami. Yasyang Jagrati Bhutani. Sanisha Pashyato Mune. Please chant. Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam. Tasyang Jagarti Sangyami. Vaishnavis? Nein? Yanisha Sarva Bhutana. Tasyang Jagrati Sangyami. Okay. Yanisha Sarva Bhutana. Tasyang Jagarti Sangyami. Yasyang Jagrati Bhutani. Sanisha Pashyato Mune. Ya. What? Nisha is night. Sarva, all. Bhutanam, of living entities. Tasyam, in that. Jagarti is wakeful. Sangyami the self-controlled. Yasya, in which Jagrati are awake. Bhutani, all beings. Sa, that is. Nisha, night. Pashyataha, for the introspective. Mune, sage. Translation. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. Purport. There are two classes of intelligent men. One is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification, and the other is introspective and awake to the cultivation of self-realization. Activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. Materialistic persons remain asleep in such a night due to their ignorance of self-realization. The introspective sage remains alert in the night of the materialistic man. The sage feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of varieties of sense pleasure, feeling sometimes happy and sometimes distressed in his sleeping condition. The introspective man is always indifferent to materialistic happiness and distress. He goes on with his self-realization activities, undisturbed by material reactions. Om Agyana Timirandasya Ganandala Shalakaya Tsaksuran Militang Yena Tasmi Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Ong Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pratarini Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pastatati Satarini Sri Chaitanya Manobistang Stapetang Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadach Mayang Dadati Svapadantikam Vandehang Sri Guru Sri Uttapada Kamalang Sri Gurun Vaishnavang Sa Sri Rupang Sagatang Sahagana Raghunathan Vitang Tang Sajivam Sadvetang Savadutang Parijana Sahitang Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitangsta He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustute Tapta Kantana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhishta Kripa Sindhuva Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jayang Sada Paribhavagyam Abhistadoham Tirtas Padang Shiva Virincinutang Suranyam Pratyartihang Pranatapala Bhavabdipotang Vande Mahapurushate Charanaravindam Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gorat Vise Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yanisha Sarva Bhutanang Tasyang Jagarti Sanyami Yasyang Jagrati Bhutani Sanisha Pasyato Munehe. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. Hare Krishna. We welcome everyone who has come for today's Bhagavad Gita class, and we beg your well wishes that we may speak something relevant, something uplifting, something enlightening and inspiring in devotional service to Krishna. So we are in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and we are coming to the end of this chapter, which is sometimes called by the Acharya Sankhya Yoga. It is a quite technical chapter, analytical chapter, and starts off with a description how we are not these bodies, how we are something else, and how the body is temporary and subject to changes and destruction and birth and death, whereas the soul is not. The soul is an eternal particle, spiritual particle, which is eternal, which doesn't change, and which is to be realized. So by spiritual practice. So spiritual practice aims at realizing the spirit soul. And interestingly, that is one short side note, is that the acharyas explain that there's how to say, there are two ways of spiritual realization. One is to focus on this how to say, cultivation of realizing what am I and what am I not. In Sanskrit they call it neti neti, and that is one how to say, mechanical approach to spiritual life, that we step by step we realize I am not the body, I am not my mind, I am not this intelligence, sense of discrimination, and we rise to higher realizations of what we are not. So if you take away everything from someone, what remains? So the naked identity, so to speak, and then one will gradually realize oneself as that atomic spiritual particle, it says, in the region of the heart, and one will start perceiving that. And then from there one can make further progress if one has sufficient how to say, sincerity and willingness to go further. Then one has an opportunity to realize that next to the spirit soul there sits the soul. In Sanskrit it's called Atma, and next to the soul, or very much with the soul, sits the super Prabhupada. It's such an interesting word, super soul. So the super soul, there's a small Atma, that is us, and there's Paramatma, the super soul. Not also capable of dealing with that. So the small soul which we are cannot imagine such an extent of awareness of unlimited space and living entities and material. So, but God can be simultaneously fully conscious of all those. So if one goes by this indirect, so to say, indirect path, then one gradually realizes the next step, 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 until one may realize that I am this Atma and I have relationship with Paramatma and I can serve Paramatma, and then attain full self-realization and perfection of life in this way. And Krishna himself in Bhagavad-gītā, he is telling Kleshoti katarastisham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir durgang dehavadbir avapyate. This path is very troublesome, it is very difficult. And it is not recommended for persons who have a body. So if we have a material body, if we want to go this way, it is difficult, that is guaranteed. It is troublesome and it takes many lives also. Krishna will also tell, Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavan mang prapadyate. Bahunam means after many, janmanam ante, after many births. At the end of many births, by word. And Bahunam gyanavan mang prapadyate. One who has then attained full knowledge, he surrenders to Krishna. So, that takes long time and is very troublesome. It takes many lives. So the other path is one could say it's more simple, and it is also for the simplistic people. It is for everyone. That first path is very difficult. You have to practice all the elements of self-control, mind control, purity. You have to pay attention to so many small things all at once to make even a little bit of progress. You have to learn, you have to become so sophisticated and also so detached and refrained from your environment to make progress on that path. But the other path is very simple. That path recommends that from the beginning one has that faith that there is a personality of Godhead. There is a person behind everything. Krishna will start the 7th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā which is the beginning of those chapters which directly deal with devotional service to God. Whereas here, these first chapters, they are, especially the second chapter, it's called a summary of the Gita also. So, but here it is rather technical. It is an impersonal approach to some extent, indirect approach, and but Krishna opens the 7th chapter. He's saying, now I will tell you, if you have heard this, if you have faith in this, then you're done. You know everything. And then Krishna will tell that the whole material world with its elements, that is my energy. And then the living beings who are living within this energy, and Krishna is using the words Daryate Jagat, who are exploiting this energy. How to say? Srila Prabhupada, he spoke one text, and in that text he's saying that although the living entity is always trying to lord it over the material, I'm paraphrasing it to some extent, I'm not 100% remember the wordings, but Prabhupada is saying that he's trying to exploit the resources of material energy, and by that he's becoming more and more entangled. And actually it is ridiculous that we're like, in one sense, how can you understand that we are exploiting matter because we have nothing to do with matter? Yes? Ausbeuten. Because the living entity has nothing to do with matter. The living entity has nothing to do with matter. How can the living entity at all be placed in matter? That is a very fascinating topic also. But in principle, Krishna is saying, Yayedang Daryate Jagat. The living entities, they are also my energy, and they are trying to exploit this material energy. And that is the general, Krishna is saying even here in this verse, in 2nd chapter, Sarva Bhutanam. That is the day of all living entities. That is their state. That is what they are aware. The day means that is where you are awake. So the day of all living entities. That that so-called, actually so-called. Prabhupada turns it into a so-called. He says the living entities are dreaming of happiness and distress. They are dreaming of happiness and distress. In a so-called state of wakefulness in this material world. That is what we tend to be absorbed in and tend to be alert to. And we use our intelligence. Prabhupada says there are 2 classes of intelligence. Making that intelligence for, that is the major question. Are we using it to think, how will I eat, how will I sleep, and the other things? Or are we using it to become self-realized. So Krishna is going so far, he's saying Sarva Bhutanam, all living entities are engaged in material activities. But the Pashya, that Muni, that sage who is introspective, that person is different. So the first process of self-realization, which I described, it means that slowly, you change. You change that nature of a general living being who is focused outward through his material senses. The eyes see outside, the nose smells outside, the ears hear outside, and the skin touches outside. So everything is going outside. That is all living entities, general living entities. But introspective sage means he's looking inside. Intro means inside. So he looks inside, and gradually he realizes what we have just mentioned, that himself beyond matter, the super self beyond matter, and their relationship, and that is his God realization. But so and therefore it is very difficult. We are used to look outside, see outside, hear outside, touch outside. It is natural for the living entity in a material body, and therefore to just say that stop and go inside, it's very difficult. It's klesha. It's a pain. It's a painful process. So therefore we recommend the other process above that first process, because that other process, it just starts with that knowledge and faith that this statement is correct. Everything is God's energy. This material world, everything I perceive in any way with my external senses, that is Krishna's energy. And I am also Krishna's energy. And from that there are two conclusions. Everything belongs to God, and I am also supposed to relate to God, because I'm God's energy. So my life is supposed to be dedicated to God. If I can have this faith, then so easily I will make spiritual advancement, because I don't have to just shut down my external perception. Rather, I purify my external perception. And if I do this, then I will realize my faith that everything is God's energy will not remain a faith. It will become a substantial realization, a perception that never fails. That is the interesting thing. Like science works like this. You make an experiment to see if your thesis is correct, and if the experiment fails, then you cannot maintain your thesis. So the Vedas are so interesting because Srila Prabhupada explains like that. You can experiment with everything, of course, but if you just accept the Vedas, you save a lot of time. You'll save a lot of time if you just have faith. Why? Because the Vedas, they how to say? The experiment always works. If you do it nicely. You have to do it nicely. But if you do nicely, it works. Chant Hare Krishna. Feel how you become peaceful and satisfied, and how there's a kind of joyfulness arising in the heart. Or how to say? Just feel what happens to your internal, what happens to you if you contemplate on this concept that God is behind everything, God is with everything, God is with me. If you contemplate those topics, you will feel how it softens the heart, it creates some sense of gentleness and humility and peacefulness. And that is what Scripture says. If you become a devotee of God, all good qualities will come out. So, or not come out, we could say come out, they become revealed. It is already there, it says even. The soul is already there, the good qualities of the soul, which are divine by nature, they are already there. And as soon as you become God conscious, even if you just have that faith that God is there, yes, immediately it will all come out. So the experiment, if it is properly done, it will never fail. So, and therefore, if one has that faith, then one can save a lot of time. And learn to engage in God consciousness. And that is then what our temple is meant for. Our temple is a place to learn to engage himself and whatever one has at his capacity, in skill, in external resources, in intellectual capacity, whatever, to engage that for the pleasure of the Lord, who is present here as Nrsingadeva, who is present in his name, and who is present in every atom of his creation. But it is so much easier to practice something in the association of like-minded people. And that is the crux nowadays, that the general flow of society is towards materialism, and we can take that great advantage of being here to be protected to some extent from that terrible influence, and be with like-minded people and find how it is easy to develop God consciousness. And that is actually very important and actual advancement of a human society which is aimed at this, which is, according to this verse, almost impossible, because all living Krishna is saying, all living entities are not introspective. All living entities are running outside. All living entities are running in the material energy, running after material. It is ridiculous. They are not running after material energy because they have nothing to do with matter. But they think that I'm running after material energy because they think that they are. But it's all moving without them, actually. It's not moving without them. But we are not this matter. So it is very ridiculous, actually, if one thinks about it. But all living entities are running in the material energy, after material energy, and they are not awake to self-realization. So how can one have a whole society that is aimed at self-realization? And that is what this movement, for example, is aiming for, and what the Vedic vision on life is aiming at. That all living entities become engaged in the service of Krishna. And if one starts engaging in the service of Krishna, one may not be immediately an introspective sage, but one will very swiftly attain that mood of introspection and deep realization if one is simply a devotee of Krishna. So all living entities should become devotees of Krishna. And the problem is that we don't know that this is our self-interest. Prahlad Maharaj, who is sitting on Nrsingadev's lap, who we also worship along with the Lord, he is saying, Nate vidu svata gating hi Vishnum. The people don't know that their interest lies in God, in Vishnu, in Krishna. And therefore, they are very unfortunate. So, the Vedic way of life will appreciate that most living entities don't understand. And therefore, in the Vedic way of life, it is recommended that we have a division of society into Varna and Ashram, and especially Varna, which means that there should be, there are already, Krishna is saying in Bhagavad-gītā also that all living entities, even all living entities, not only human beings, but especially in human society, it is relevant that we, that we consider this differentiation of society properly, because naturally some people are very intellectually inclined, and they're very considerate, thoughtful, introspective people. And naturally there are some people who have natural qualities of leadership within major society. They have that, sense of, leadership is a good word. No, automatically they will take over the group, is it not? There are such people. They don't think about it, they just do it. It is their nature. They take over a group, they're heroic, sometimes they become a little possessive of other people. So that is natural. Some people are like this. Some people, they always want some money. They always want to produce something. And some people, they just want to be a servant, more or less consciously. But they want to be a servant means I want some security, I want some No, I want my house, I want my wife, I want my children, I want my car, I want, everything nicely settled. And whoever can help me to get those things, I will serve. That is the natural inclination of most people, actually. They don't like to think for themselves. They just like to be, they just like to be all right. And if you help me to be all right, then you're my master. Like that. So that is natural also. And in Sanskrit, Sanskrit not so important, but so Krishna says that division of society is already there, and that should be consciously done. There's one book called Science of Self-Realization, and it consists to a major extent of dialogues with Srila Prabhupada. And in one dialogue, Srila Prabhupada is elaborating on this 4 varnas and how people should be properly trained according to their nature. Someone who has that nature of a simple person, he should be trained accordingly. Someone who has that nature of a Vaishya, a merchant, an agriculturist, an enterpriser, we could say, he should be trained accordingly to protect animals, to deal with money properly. And someone who has that administrative capacity, that leadership capacity, he should be trained accordingly. And someone who is very intellectual and introspective, he should be trained accordingly. And Prabhupada is writing, is telling in that recorded interview that the problem is nowadays that the butcher becomes the senator, meaning the most simple and even sinful person, the person whose job it is to kill, he takes the seat of the top of state, or not the top of government, but the top of, how you would call that? I mean there's Judikative und Lexikative auf Sanskrit, auf Latein. Das habe ich in der Schule gelernt. Anyway, but the state, it consists of like the high court, and that is different. They make the laws, they decide what is law, and the others, they are executing. So there's, executors, and I don't know what is the best English word. No, administrator is executive, and the other is those who make the law. One makes the law, one executes the law. So the intellectuals, they should tell what is law. And Prabhupada is saying that the butcher is becoming that person. And therefore, then there's a law, yes, we can have a slaughterhouse, and we can kill so many living entities. It is all right. But it is not. The only thing is that the most simple and inconsiderate person who likes to eat meat, he has become the person to make the law. So that is the fault of nowadays. So if people are trained properly, then the leaders of society will be those intellectual and introspective and intelligent people who are trained properly to take that post of leadership, and they are the authorities for those who execute. So those who are execute, they have to learn. They're one of their main parts of education is to learn to respect and to obey to those who are actually intelligent. And then those who are into money making and the Vaishyas, they have to learn also to obey their superiors, and they have to learn to use they have to have readiness to give their money for higher purpose to those higher authorities. And then the most simple, the general people, they have to learn to be humble before those people who are more qualified and more intelligent. And then the natural question is, but is there not exploitation? Will there not be some problem, like, you are my superior, why should I accept you like this? And the answer that is given by Srila Prabhupada there is that, yes, the thing that has to be there is the common cause. When there is a common cause, then a family works nicely, then a small group works nicely, and also a state will work nicely. And even the whole world will work nicely if there is the proper common cause. And that proper common cause is what I mentioned before, that God is the proprietor of everything. and everything has to be used for his service and for his pleasure. And if that is learned, then there will be a common cause for everyone to cooperate nicely. And if that is done, then everyone will be happy. So that common cause of God consciousness, of understanding that God exists and that God is a person and that he has likes and dislikes and that we should learn to serve him and to please him, that is the duty of that introspective sage. And that introspective sage has to be respected by those who have power in this world. If those who have power in this world respect the introspective sage, then they can run a state on the basis of the principles of God consciousness. They can run a state, they can run the whole world on the basis of God consciousness. If they become subordinate and humble before the introspective sage, who is trained not only to be very introspective and aloof like that, no, but also, of course, to have good qualities of empathy and wishing well for the whole world. So, so generally, if that is there, if the leaders of society are God conscious, the whole society can be educated, guided, supported, encouraged, inspired on a path of God consciousness. Because most people, they cannot on their own understand the thing, but they can feel it if it is going on. If we chant Hare Krishna, anyone who is open enough, he will feel it. He will feel the effect. And even if they don't feel, still they have some benefit. So, how to say? So that is the wonderful thing, and that is the challenge of this movement, actually, to take part in proving that this God consciousness makes happy, and that it gives fulfillment, and that it gives rise to spiritual realizations, or even so many other social and scientific and so many other realizations. If that axiomatic truth is accepted. Nowadays, the axiomatic truth accepted in the major part of society is that we are this body. We are a combination of matter. That's us. And when we die, then it just means that the matter, this material, complex falls apart. That is the concept of most people nowadays. Many people may also believe in more, but that is what is being preached. So how abominable. Most people are actually very simple, and they describe how they were there when their parent died or someone else died, and they felt that, yes, someone was in there and now he's gone out, he's gone away. So all general people have a natural sense of something higher is there. But it's being like 180%, it's being preached against so heavily. No, life comes from matter. Darwin was right. We have this evolution theory, and everything is made of matter. There is nothing else but matter. Who is preaching like that? Some fools, some people who are not thinking, but they're very convinced of their immature conclusions on life. So the mission of this Hare Krishna movement is that people become convinced of this principle that God consciousness is something substantial, and that it is the basis of Prabhupada would write peace and prosperity in life. So Wohlstand. So yes. And that is the beauty of the Vedic life. Vedic way of life, that everyone is thought of. So if the leaders of society can become God conscious, then others will follow. And that is how this movement will create a revolution. Bhagavatam is saying also that this movement creates a revolution in the lives of in civilization by creating this sense of God consciousness, and by proving to people more and more that this is something real, and that this is something worth cooperating for. And if that common cause, if that common ground can become established, that this is what we cooperate for. We cooperate for the pleasure of God. We cooperate for the service of God, for the worship of God. If that can be established, then cooperation for that cause will bring out all good qualities of humanity and help us achieve the goal of life, which is to realize God. Okay, I end here. Maybe you have some questions or some additions. Was I over someone's head? I don't know. Like, you can relate to what I told, or it was like too much? Okay. 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 Then, yes? If you chant Hare Krishna, you will have the completest experience of Atma, because if you our scripture says, if the sun goes up, you can see everything, including yourself. If Krishna arises in your consciousness, you can see yourself as well. And actually, everything is connected with Krishna. We are also connected with Krishna. So if we realize Krishna, we realize ourselves. I once met one person. I met him twice on missionary activity. I was distributing books. I met the person, he was interested. I showed him how to chant japa. And he told me that before that he had practiced silent meditation. And then I met him again. He told that after 3 minutes of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, he had the same state of experience, consciousness, that he had after 15 minutes of silent meditation. So our way to realize Atma is chanting Hare Krishna. And I have the impression from my own experience and from observing other people that many of us not take to the chanting in a very profound and considerate way. We just start doing it, and then we sometimes we have our phone in our hand and chant, or we walk around and chant. Such things we see sometimes amongst ourselves, and then we chant without attention. If we don't chant with attention, we will not have a very conscious experience. It's so simple. If we don't chant consciously, how you want to be conscious of the result of chanting? But if we take to chanting as something we really try very nicely and strictly, ultimately it requires some discipline, strictness, to chant attentively. But if we chant attentively, so quickly we will experience something inside. So I thought these days that yes, this is really a key. It is such a simple thing, but for me it took a long time to really dawn that this torturing oneself may be said too much, but being strict, chanting is a discipline. To chant attentively, to sit down and Hare Krishna, and Srila Prabhupada would always advise his disciples. Yesterday we heard that Gorkeshwardas Babaji, the great Babaji in our line, he also recommended you just hear. If you chant and you think of Krishna's pastimes while chanting, actually it's not good, because instead of artificially engaging your mind with spiritual topics, which cannot anyway, but that is also helpful maybe. But the highest thing is you just hear. very attentively, with faith and with understanding that Krishna is addressed by the name, Krishna can hear us, what to speak, that it even says Krishna is the name. So if we chant attentively, we contact Krishna very consciously. If we chant consciously, we will consciously contact Krishna, and automatically we will also contact ourselves. So that is one realization I have on it. We should really try to chant attentively. Hear ourselves chanting. And Prabhupada would say, with your tongue you chant, and with your ear you hear. And before that, therefore, hearing is also important. Shravanam kirtanam. So by hearing, and by hearing, we develop a sense of what does the chanting mean. We're hearing the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is telling, I'm in your heart, I'm the proprietor of all energy, and if you chant my name, I hear you. So that sense of relationship is important. The acharyas say, sambandha gyan, knowledge of the relationship that we have with Krishna. So if that is done properly, this hearing and chanting, then you get the spiritual world. Here, it's for you. If you just learn to chant consciously and with proper understanding. The spiritual world is here. Take. Including yourself. You will also be there. And the whole spiritual world is for you. If you chant attentively with proper understanding. Yeah. It's. I feel like I'm a little indirect in response, but is it satisfactory? Okay. Yes?
So I have one confusion. Sometimes I'm not chanting, not speaking or saying something, so I'm not hearing it. I'm just imagining, words in Sanskrit coming towards me.
Mm-hmm.
The visual script.
Yes.
And I just focus between the eyes. As soon as I wake up, not get up, but just wake up in the bed.
Mm.
Good morning. So I just imagine. So it's just like an image of the Lord in the background and the words coming towards me. And is that not as effective as really chanting when like speaking and hearing what you just said?
That topic is interesting also, and recently actually I dealt with it. We have one scripture. It is not like a scripture we focus on in daily life, but it is an important scripture in our tradition called Hari Bhakti Vilas, and it explains in detail how one can execute one's relationship with God in daily life. And there are so many rituals, and it may not be practical for us. It is not so practical for us in major parts because it was written at that time, 500 years ago, for sophisticated brahmanas who were very ritualistic people. So, but there are some practical things. And one verse it's saying, Brahma Muhurte Uttaya, Brahma Muhurta Uttaya, Krishna Krishneti Kirtayan. That means you should get up at Brahma Muhurta, means 1.5 hours before sunrise. You should rise from bed, and you should, the first thing you should do is say, Krishna, Krishna. So, because that is the immediate elevation of consciousness if you say Krishna's name. And then you should, and then what is recommended is to meditate. That is interesting also. It is recommended to meditate. Why? Because that creates, that establishes, or that reminds us of the relationship we have. And it recommends meditating on verses. There's one verse from Bhagavatam that is quoted. There's one other verse, we assume it comes from the author themselves. And it's meditations on Krishna, on his qualities, on his position, on, like it says, Jayati Janani Vasa. That means all glories to the shelter of all people. That is the first meditation on Krishna. And then Devaki Janmavada. That means who is known as the son of Devaki. And then Yadu Vara Parishat, who is the best amongst the Yadus. And that is how that verse continues a little more. And then the other verse it's recommending also meditation on Krishna. So that is what the acharyas recommend. If you want to follow something which is, so to say, prescribed, I can show you that Bhagavatam verse also if you like. It's very beautiful, and if you know will know some little Sanskrit, no? You're from India. So then it's easy for you to like internalize and feel the thing. It's very sweet. And I heard one lecture where I learned about this from a spiritual master in our movement, and he recommended before you start chanting, you just take 5 minutes, you meditate about that. And in that way you, you connect with what you know already, which means that you have this sambandha gyan consciousness. You have a consciousness of your relationship with Krishna. And if you start chanting like that, then it's very good. And what it will do, that is my experience, it will help you to hear. Our meditation should not keep us from hearing. Our meditation should support our hearing. Some thoughts, they will take our consciousness away from Krishna and from the hearing, Hare Krishna. But some thoughts, they will, impel, they will encourage, they will push us towards hearing and chanting with sincerity, with realization of the with the conception and understanding of the relationship. And then hearing becomes so much more relishable because you appreciate whom are you calling to. So that is very nice. Yeah, that is what I can recommend, and whatever else helps you, that is also favorable. We should always remember the Lord and never forget the Lord. But if we follow the authorized processes, we are always properly guided. If we, if thinking in a certain way helps you to chant nicely, then it is good. Chanting nicely means chanting with actual understanding of the relationship. And imagining something is always a little tricky because, then then we hang ourselves on the mind to some extent. But the mind should not be something that we hang up on. It should be something that helps us to hear the holy name, which is like guaranteed spiritual, like that. Okay.
So it's called Avahan. I don't know if you know this word.
Which?
Avahan.
Avahan. I don't know the word.
Okay, so for Lord Shiva we say Om Namah Shivaya or So some verses for connecting to Lord Shiva. Like for Lord Krishna, I say Om. So I take different names of Lord Krishna, like Om Narayana Namah, Om
Yes.
Vasudevaya Namah,
Yes.
Om Krishnaya Namah,
Yes.
like that. Om Madhavaya Namah, like that.
Yes.
So that is a way. So that really helps me to connect to the Lord and actually, sort of communicate with Him. And I'm not even speaking the words. I'm just, as I said, the image of the Lord in the background and the words
Yes.
coming towards me in the name
Yes.
of like that. And that really helps connect. I mean, it's my own way. It's not like I've read it somewhere.
Yes. If you follow authority, then you're on the safer side. And the authorities say we should, like I quoted this verse, Brahma Muhurta Uttaya, Krishna Krishneti Kirtayan. Kirtayan means you chant, you pronounce the sound. And that is recommended. Everyone is on a journey, of course, and something may be natural for you in your present condition, and then you do that. But you should know that a higher ideal is to chant with your tongue, to actually pronounce also, in the Vedas in general, amongst the names of the Lord. And therefore we chant Hare Krishna. It is an Upanishad, Kali Sambarbhat. One Upanishad, this mantra is quoted, Hare Krishna. It's one of the verses.